My name is Sarah, and welcome to my channel. I live in France, and one of my favorite things to do is travel the countryside and villages looking for antique fairs and vintage flea markets. There are so many treasures to be found and such bargains to be had. I also make home decor and do DIY flips from the things that I find. I am so excited to take you along for the ride, so if you love going on a great French vintage adventure, I hope you'll subscribe to my channel and ring the bell. As they say in French, c'est parti! So let's go! Do you remember in the last episode we went to the thrift shop? We were looking at vases for a DIY project. We ended up choosing these two because we liked the shape. Didn't matter what color they were or what finish they had because we would end up changing all of that. Stay tuned to see how we changed these simple thrift store vases into these two beautiful time-worn vessels. The first step is to give the vase a really good base coat of spray paint. I'm doing this out on the terrace of my apartment in a cardboard tray for protection. If I had a garden, I would be doing it there, but we live on the 5th floor in the city, so this is what we got. Since we'll be doing a dark vase, we'll be painting black. You won't see the black in the end, but the paint will give the vase a good base layer, and that will help us with the next steps. I'm now going to let this dry for a good 3 or 4 hours. This vase is really smooth and slick. We want a more aged look, so we're now going to give it a layer of texture. I'm going to use this wood filler that I picked up for a couple years at the hardware store. You can also use joint compound or mortar or anything that will stick well to the vase and that you can build up layers with. The trick here to getting a good finish is to wear rubber or latex gloves. So you really just take small amounts of the compound and smooth it directly onto the base. I'm using horizontal swipes since that's the finished look that I want. Be generous so that you can really see the texture and movement in the finish. There's no need to be stingy. You can work it as much as you like by just adding more. Keep doing that until you're happy with the result. Now, I'm going to let this sit for a couple hours to dry properly, and then we'll get to the next step. Okay, so now the compound is dry and it's time to paint. To start, I'm going to use some black acrylic paint that I had in my craft box, and I'll mix it with some baking soda. The grit in the baking soda gives the paint a really nice extra texture. I'll give it a really good coat. I'm going to let this dry now for another couple hours, and then we'll work on building up the layers of paint. For this next step, I'm taking an art sponge I have, and I'll dip it into an antique white chalk paint. I really want to layer some highlights onto the vase, again horizontally, to bring out the texture in the vase. The paint will stick to the ridges and really draw out the depth of the texture. I'll build up slowly in many layers and take my time with this. I'll concentrate on the parts where the vessel would naturally be exposed to the elements, like on the rim and on the edges. And if I put too much on, I could just wipe it away or dip the sponge into a little bit of water to tone it down. So now I can start to build up some color to give it a really realistic tone, as if it had been sitting in the elements for years. I'll add some dark brown acrylic paint. I can dab that on and then wipe it down, building up layer by layer. A little more black, and maybe I'll even go back with some more white. There are no rules here, just keep going until you get it exactly how you like. So let's let this sit to dry and we'll see how it turned out. So here it is. What do you think? Do you remember what it looked like before? A pretty cool transformation for a really cheap pot. So let's have a go with the second vase now. This one we're going to give a nice white base coat. We might even give it a couple coats just to make sure we're covering everything. Now with my rubber gloves on, I'm going to give it a good coating of compound. We'll bring up some really nice texture here. So this time we're going to do something a little different on the top. We're going to try and give it a little added texture. Now I'm just going to take a pencil and mark about 1 centimeter down from the lip of the vase. And then I'm going to mark another 3 centimeters down from that. I'm going to build up a really good thick layer of the compound here. So now I'm going to take a sculpting tool that I found at the dollar store and I'm just going to smooth things down a little bit. And now I'll take the edge of the tool and I'll draw a line around the top of the extra compound that I put and again around the bottom. This doesn't have to be perfect at all. In fact, the more rustic it looks, the better. Now I'm going to add some vertical lines between the 2 lines that I've drawn. I'm going to go all the way around the vase, spacing them just a couple millimeters apart. I think it just gives it a nice extra touch, a nice little bit of texture at the top and some visual interest, rather than just the plain finish that it had before. And when we paint this later on, you'll really see how it brings out the texture. Okay, time to let this dry again, and we're going to need to let it dry really well for another few hours. Now it's time to paint. I'm going to use again my black and brown mix of acrylic paint, so it's going to be a nice dark color on the base. And I'm just going to apply it with my paintbrush all around. Okay, so let's let this dry for a little bit now, and then we'll go in with some white and some lighter colored paint and really pull out the texture. And so here I'm just going to use my paintbrush again, and actually with a really dry brush technique, I'm going to use that same antique white chalk paint from before and just use a teeny amount on my paintbrush to pull out the texture within the lines and the ridges that I've made. So now I can use a little bit of paper towel and really work the paint into the ridges and the texture. I can even go back in with a teeny little bit of water and make sure that things are really nice and smooth and blended. Then I can go back in with my paintbrush anywhere I want, darken it up, lighten it up, anything goes. I even have a smaller, finer paintbrush to go inside the ridges and just really work the paint in there. Okay, so I think I'm happy with it now. I'm going to let it dry and then we'll see again how this one turned out. I really like how the colors worked out and the texture here. The vertical stripe band is really cute. It just gives it that little extra touch of something. Now I have a set of olive branches. They're fake ones that I picked up on Etsy, but they're really realistic looking. I quite like them. I'm going to put them in the vase now, and I'll show you what it looks like as a styled finished vase. So I've been doing these kind of vases for a while now, and I'm starting to get quite a collection. Here are some of the ones that I've made. They're all different shapes and sizes, some big and some small. I even did an earth-colored brown one. I quite like it. I'm not sure if I like the black ones or the brown one better. What do you think? Alright, well that's it for this time. Thanks so much for watching. If you want more French vintage adventures, don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell for notifications of new videos.